Hey there, hunters. Welcome back to the Gunners Guild. Today we're going to talk about Title Update 2 for Monster Hunter Wilds. Shocker, I know. And while I typically go over the patch notes for these kind of videos, I actually don't feel like that's necessary this time around, as there's really not much listed that we really care about or that influences Gunners at all. I think the ability to turn off glows is probably the biggest added feature in this patch. So the patch notes are just going to be linked down below if you want to look at that. Instead of reading the patch notes, I am going to go over a quick rundown of my impressions of the title update before diving into the Gunner changes. So bear with me because I don't usually make videos about my personal opinions because honestly, no one should really care what I think. Anyway, Title Update 2 was, for me, surprisingly good. I mean, I talk a lot of shit on Twitter, streams, and Discord about all the little things I hate about Monster Hunter Wilds, because typically it is just all the little things that keep adding up and up and up. But Title Update 2 went pretty smoothly for me. I didn't have any loss in performance that we're kind of used to seeing every update. Wilds ran very well for me with no frame drops, crashes, graphical issues, stuff like that. Granted, I still have to lock my frames to 56 with frame gen on to be able to get those 6 ticks of element consistently, so there's that. But even so, it didn't feel bad compared to the last update. I don't know why, it really felt smooth and buttery. And like, it's really hard to explain when a game feels good because it's so subjective. It could be like the delay in inputs or dropped inputs and stuff like that, but I didn't really feel any of that this update. So yeah, I'm surprised. Now, I also didn't have the half frames bug when opening like the ammo menu like the other Gunners had, so go figure, not for me. So I can't really complain about that, but I do think that's patched now too, so that's good. Now, regarding Steve and Lagiacrus, Steve is an okay fight. I think it's relatively the same as Sunbreak, but man, Steve is huge here in Wilds. There's something about the fight that does feel off for me though, like his attacks seem to land before they look like they would. Maybe it's just because he puts his feet so far forward when he attacks and my depth perception is bad or something. Or maybe they get hidden under the terrain, but it just feels like I get hit earlier than the actual attacks connect or when I expect them to, which is kind of throwing me off. Overall though, the fight's good. I don't particularly care that Steve looks so shiny and metallic, but you know, it's fine. I don't hate the fight. I'm more than happy to fight him over and over again for the parts. No big deal there. I'm just glad the feet are the weak spot again, so that's cool. Now, the Lagiacrus fight on land is pretty okay too. I actually don't mind fighting Lagiacrus on the ground, which is kind of really this whole fight. It does have a lot of the same vibes of like GU laggy, which is kind of what I was expecting. A lot of people don't like it, but I think that's okay. However, the chase sequences kind of got old instantly after the first hunt. I don't like having to force chase monsters through zones because everything's all scripted and HP locked. And while Lagiacrus is technically not HP locked into doing the transitions, he can die before he gets to like the underwater stage. But like, you know, at 50% HP, he's going to start moving. And if you don't, you know, catch him with traps and lure pods and get everything you can do to get him dead before he transitions, he's going to go right to the water zone. And then in the water zone, that whole segment is really boring. I actually think the underwater movement is really smooth and actually feels great. And I am also surprised that they gave Lagiacrus' entire moveset underwater for, you know, such a small segment of the fight. But the only thing we can actually do underwater is throw Slinger ammo and use Clutch Claw. And why do we have Clutch Claw? Literally, the Iceborne Clutch Claw, it's Clutch Claw, mount attack, and, you know, whatever. Like, why? I mean, I wonder if this segment was a test for the idea of underwater combat and Clutch Claw for the expansion pack. But I don't want to see that at all. It's two things that nobody wanted. I'm okay with underwater combat, but I know nobody else wanted it, and I don't think anyone wants Clutch Claw back, so why do we have it here? It seems silly. Anyway, those two fights are okay. I don't hate them, I don't love them, but, you know, I do like that the drops are lessened, so you do have to hunt them more than twice to complete all the weapons and armor, which definitely gives players more time with them before they drop the game until October, when we get Title Update 3. But yeah, all the stuff that they added, no real complaints. A little nitpicking, but no complaints. Anyway, let's get on to the gear, and let's talk about the Gunners gear changes and all that stuff. So we're going to start with the armors, because this is going to be quick. So, Steve armor is kind of meh. The boots are good, and they will find their way onto some sets, I'm sure. The gloves and helmet aren't bad either. They're just, you know, not more efficient than things we already have, so there's no real power creep there. As the 2-piece bonus only allows you to refresh Adrenaline once before it has to fall off and get refreshed again, it's pretty weak. The 4-piece bonus grants extra raw when you trigger this, and I believe it's 10 raw, it could be 15, I actually don't really remember, I'm sure someone will mention or correct me, but it's not that much. And so for the most part, we're not going to be using Steve's set bonus. The Lagiacrus armor is actually pretty nice. It grants Wex and Max Might and has good slots, but again, the armor set bonus, not good. It gives 20% affinity for 15 seconds, but with a 30-second cooldown, so the uptime is not great. It's going to average you about a 5% affinity boost across the board. The individual pieces are pretty great again, and will find their way onto some builds, I'm sure, but we're not going to be using this as like a full set bonus or anything. I just want to get that out of the way because the armors, like I said, they're nothing crazy, but they're good. So let's get into the bowguns. We're going to start with the Steve bowguns, which are predominantly spread based, which is interesting because they used to be normal and slice, but now they're like spread and slice. I guess they can use normals too. Don't mind me. Anyway, weapon skills, pretty cool here. So we do get evade to reload, which is exactly as it was, in 4U. You roll, dodge, or sidestep, you get one more ammo. This is great for slicing ammo because it's got a really slow reload speed, but unfortunately the light bowgun can't use slice ammo, so heavy bowgun only. The other skill is Blade Scale Hone, which we had in GU and I think Sunbreak, but they were entirely different there. So in here, every time you do a perfect dodge, you get 3 extra shots of 25% more damage. The bow, same thing, 3 extra shots, 25% more damage on perfect dodge, really cool. For gunners, you get 3 extra ammo of the current raw ammo that you have selected. Only raw ammo. When you do a perfect dodge, if you have spread active, you get 3 extra shots of spread. You can do it for normals and pierce. That is it. Those are the only things that it works with. Now, unfortunately, it just doesn't get boosted by opening shot. Like if you hold on to your 3, you're not going to get that extra raw for these bonus shots. But, they still do like 25% more damage than normal ammo, so they're pretty strong. So I do like these skills a lot. Now, regarding the Steve heavy bowgun specifically, this does become the best spread heavy bowgun hands down. The clip size doesn't really matter because we have both the blade scale extra ammo and dodge to reload. So, spread 3, it's got good raw, decent slots. It also has good slice backup since we can step after shooting to reload our slice and go through pretty much all of our slice reserves pretty quick. This also enables a new kind of playstyle for heavy bowgun, which is cool. So we can go like evasion over guarding. You can shoot the spread ammo and then sidestep to cancel out of it. And then that sidestep is going to dodge, reload, activate blade scale if you iframe something, as well as you can activate adrenaline off that. So it's a lot you can do for that one quick input. It tends to feel more like a pump action shotgun in this case, and I really like this setup, to be honest. Though it is only effective against monsters that are weak to raw, such as Zoshia and Arkveld, unfortunately, and elemental ammo will still beat spreads out on pretty much every other matchup. But it is an actual viable option now, and it does feel really good. So I do have 2 sets here for spread bowguns, one using the adrenaline as I had mentioned, and the other one using just more of a weakness exploit agitator setup instead, in case you don't want to upkeep the adrenaline. Now we're going to go full Gore on these sets, which is 2 Gore, 2 full Gore Anjanath, because we can sidestep after shooting our spread with heavy bowgun, and we can still maintain the max might bonus since we don't eat all that extra stamina bar with just a sidestep, which makes this a really reliable way to keep up 30% affinity, and why we have adrenaline over like weakness exploit as a set, so you just get a bunch more raw out of it. You can still run the Wex version, and you can then put crit boost decorations in your weapon instead, but the weapon decorations here on the adrenaline setup can either be like spread up for 5% spread damage, opening shot for 15 raw, which is equivalent to about 7.5% damage, and we can kind of always keep this up since we can just step to reload our spread and keep full ammo anyway. And then we can either use ballistics or crit boost or crit eye in your remaining slots. Take your pick. I went with opener since it comes with ballistics on top, but yeah, I mean, it's really not much of a difference one way or the other. But overall, I really like Steve's heavy bowgun. Really cool playstyle with it. I think spread feels great. I just need better matchups, so this is a win. Now, Steve's light bowgun. Slight problem here. For spread, you really want to be using the chaser shots with light bowgun, which is kind of eating your mobility and makes iframing afterwards very difficult. So you don't really get the opportunities in the same flow to use like blade scale and dodge to reload as if you would with a heavy bowgun. But also the Steve light bowgun also has like 50 less raw compared to like the Deshugama bowgun. So the spreads are much weaker anyway. Even, with the blade scale bonus, they're not as good. Plus, Dash light bowgun has higher clip sizes by default. And, the roll to reload on Steve doesn't really do much for us anyways, because as I mentioned before, spreads have like the fastest reload speed of any ammo. So for light bowgun, you can easily just move and reload, and it's not really going to stop anything. It's better on heavy bowgun since, like I said, after we shoot, we can cancel our recoil, reload, activate blade scale, and adrenaline all in the same action, so it's good there. But light bowgun with chasers, you're not really going to get that chance. So I wouldn't really recommend Steve light bowgun for spreads, sadly. However, for normal 3s, it's actually a really good option since normal 3s are much more mobile than spreads, And you can easily force yourself into iframing attacks to set up blade scale and adrenaline if you want. While normal 3s aren't exactly the best, they still won't beat elemental in most matchups, of course. They should be more comparable to Pierce and Spread, given that Pierce was slightly nerfed in the last patch, and we have stronger normals with blade scale now, and Spread still, it's got a learning curve there. You can still run, 4-piece Gore for a raw setup and run Agitator or Weakness Exploit, your choice, so that's what I do here. Similar to the Spread, you can use Opener Deco, but, it might be easier just to run full crit boost or normal up. There's really not much of a difference between, any of those. Just pick whatever you got. So, Steve Heavy Bowgun for Spreads, Steve Light Bowgun for Normals. Let's go ahead and move on to Lagiacrus Bowguns, which are basically the same. The unique thing here about these Bowguns is obviously the weapon skill. This skill converts 40% of your Thunder res to pure Thunder element damage if you're a Blade Master, because if you're a Gunner, you'll get 20%. So even if you have 40 Thunder res, you get 8 total element, which usually is really good for Bowguns, but because of the weird penalties and scaling in Wilds, it's actually not that much here. That being said, these Bowguns do boast a great clip size of Thunder 2, and they have Para 2 for backup, but of course people just want to know, is this the new Thunder Bowgun or not? And yes, it is technically, but barely. And by barely, I really mean barely. I was comparing two sets, the original 4 Gore element setup, the Artian Bowguns, and then we have the new one here with 2-piece Gore, 40 Thunder res, Lagiacrus Bowguns, and then we needed to do this with 2-piece so we can fit, 2 Laggy and 1 AT Ray piece into it for more resistance and hit that 40 breakpoint. But comparing full buffs, both sets, everything active, on average, the damage the Lagiacrus sets were half a point more than the Artian per tick. That's all, not even a whole point of damage more. Damo, who's doing all the big maths while I do quick maths, basically came out to the same conclusion, though with the Lagiacrus sets having, a little bit more Wex and having that little bit more affinity, and we get one more clip size, they do slightly pull ahead. But again, I can't express how slightly this is. We're talking like 176.6 DPS compared to like 179.1. It's like 1% more damage. Really not much of a gain. You're probably not even going to notice it. So like, yes, it is better, but is it really better? Now, regarding the rest of the elements, obviously we're still going to run Artian weapons and run the same 4-piece Gore setup we've been using for the last couple updates. Nothing really changed here. Crit Ele, Expert, Ballistics, pick whatever you want, set hasn't changed. Regarding Pierce setups, again, no change there. You can run Pierce with Light Bowgun, don't recommend it with Heavy Bowgun. You can still do 4 Gore or full Gore setups with it, but it should be a lot more comparable to Spreads and Normals nowadays. Anyway, that should be it for all the things that really changed this update regarding Gunners. It's not a lot, no significant meta shift, but we do have new guns and armors to use now, which is always cool to test and try. I'm sure Damo and Unkempt Herald will find out more in the coming days while I'm playing other games, so make sure you keep up with their Discord and document posts. Overall, I think this update's actually fine. I don't really have anything to complain about for once. I don't hate anything they added or changed. I actually really like the Spread Heavy Bowgun, like a lot. I just wish Spreads were a little bit better because I do love Spreads. But anyway, that's going to be all for me. Thank you all for watching. Good luck out there, hunters, and I'll see you in the next title update.